Hello, it's Ashley with At Home with Ashley. A few months ago, I made myself a fake cake, and I had so much fun with it, so I decided for Halloween, I'm gonna be a cake. A big old cake, and I'm so excited about it. I have been making sketches and thinking about this, and now it's finally time to do it. I'm a little bit worried about the math because there's circles, and I had to review what's the circumference, what's the diameter. But I'm going to use that math and make myself a cake, so let's get started. For the structure of the cake, I am using foam core. You could also use cardboard if you have a bunch in your recycle pile, but I don't, so I'm using this. I spent a lot of time figuring out which size to make my cake, and I can put the dimensions on here as well. If your body is smaller or bigger than mine, you're gonna have to adjust it so you can fit it on and off of your body. But I thought this was a good reference because it was hard to find anybody who shared their dimensions. To cut out the circle, all I'm doing is tying a pencil to a piece of string, and then I will put a nail in the middle of the foam core. So I want my top circle to be 47 inches round. That fits over my body. And then, so that means that's a 15-inch diameter, which means the radius is 7.5 inches. So I will cut the string down to 7.5 inches, nail it in, draw a circle, and then cut it out. Okay, I have the first ring cut out, and this is going to be the top of the top tier. And what you're going to want to do at this point is to make sure you can get it up over your legs, over your hips, and over your boobs. So this works for me. Then for the bottom tier, what you're going to do is you're going to put this on your foam core and you're going to trace it around, and that's going to be the inside circle of the bottom tier. And then I'm doing an 11-inch diameter on this one. So I'll tie the string again, put the nail in the middle, draw another circle, and then cut both of those circles out with the X-Acto knife, and that will give me the top of the bottom tier. Next, it's time to make the sides of the cake, and for the top tier, I'm doing a 10-inch layer, and for the bottom tier, I'm doing a 14-inch layer. The reason you need to know the circumference is so that you can cut the right amount of side pieces. So for the top, the 10-inch part, I needed 60 inches, and for the bottom, I needed 72 inches. So once I have those pieces cut out, I need to score them so that they will bend and make the circle shape. So about every 1/4 inch, I'm just taking my X-Acto knife and making a line. And not cutting all the way through, just kind of scoring lightly. And this does take a while. At first, I measured every 1/4 inch and drew a line and then scored on top of that. And that just took forever. And I just kind of going freehand, and that works really good. Next, we need to glue everything together. So I am taking the side pieces for the top tier and I am gluing them onto the outside ridge. I just do a little bit of glue at a time, hold the foam core in place for 20 seconds, and then it dries enough that I can move on. When I have two pieces that hit each other, I found it worked really nice. I have this bookbinding tape, and to just tape the side pieces together so I could glue the bottom. And I ended up taping kind of wherever two pieces of foam core hit each other to really reinforce everything. So I did the bottom tier, then the top tier, and then I glued both of those together as well. And that gives us the finished structure. This took me about 3 hours to make, but it's exciting because tomorrow we can start frosting it. It's day 2 of making my cake costume, and I don't know if I told you, but this is going to be a wedding cake themed, which I am very excited about. So I'm going to do a cake hat, and on top of it, I'm going to have a bride and groom. I think I'm going to hold a bouquet, and also I'm going to decorate shoes to look like a cake. So it's only going to get more exciting. For this project, I'm using lightweight spackle, and this is really important to get this exact same thing because you don't want something heavy, and this spreads really well and looks just like frosting. I am mixing it with some Rit dye to change the color of it. You can also use acrylic paint. I wanted to test this out, and luckily it worked really nice. So I'm mixing it really nicely, and then I am putting it on the cake. And the first cake I am frosting is going to be my hat. I just figure start small, because it's a little overwhelming to do this giant cake, but then I moved on to the giant cake. And there's really not much to it. Just use a spatula and put it on the cake. Try to go as smooth as you can, but really the ridges that are inevitably gonna happen, just make it look more like a cake and like frosting. So that is fine. After the cake, I am moving on to shoes. Thrifted a pair of shoes just so that I can make some cake shoes, and it feels a little ridiculous frosting them, but I think it's going to be really cute. So I'm frosting the whole thing. I do have a vision. I have a sketch I can show you, But I do think that having it all the frosting, and then I'll layer on like the cake layers and the frosting layers tomorrow. For wearing underneath the cake costume, I wanted something as well. So I got a bodysuit and I had a collar that I already owned. So I decided to dye them the same like pink color. So I put them in, and because they both have like some synthetic fibers, I used dye for that, and they turned out really good. They're a little bit dark. I kind of hope they lighten up after I throw them in the washing machine, but I rinsed them out until the water ran clear, threw them in the washing machine. Okay, so here is the cake all frosted with the base layer, the hat, the shoes, and tomorrow we will add on the more exciting part, but this really needs to dry overnight because you don't want to like touch it when you're doing the other stuff and get spackle all over you. So I'm letting this dry, and let's come back to it tomorrow. Today is Frost All of the Things Day. So we did the base layer frosting, but now it's time to do the decorative frosting, where we add some color and some like really fun details and make it look like an old-fashioned cake. I'm so pumped about this. I'm thinking I'm gonna do a fun color for the frosting, just because like why not? I know I'm doing a wedding cake, so it should probably just be white on white, but I'm a colorful girl. I need a colorful cake. So time to frost. The first thing we're gonna do is mix up some icing. I am doing, spackle again for the icing, and I'm using the color Truly Green, and I'm just using the Rit dye. That's working great for me, and I'm mixing it really well, and then I'm putting it in a piping bag. So I make a cuff with the piping bag on my hand, and then I scrape it against my thumb, and that gets the stuff in the bottom so that you can use it to decorate the cake. And first I'm doing all of the corners, so I'm doing kind of a shell motif, and if you don't know how to frost a cake, you can go on YouTube and watch professionals frost a cake, and it's just like a rhythm you get down, and it's not so hard. So try that if you've never tried. I have been frosting this, and I felt really good about the green frosting. I'm like, pink and green, they're so cute together. And now that I have it on, I think it looks like the Harry Potter cake, when Hagrid's like, happy birthday Harry, when they first meet. And it's not the vibe I'm going for. I wanted to like elevate it and cute, so I'm hoping like we could add some stuff and it will help. I have all of these like pink foamy flowers that look like frosting, so I need to add those on. Maybe some scallops. I don't know, maybe if I use a different color besides the green, it'll tone it down. Wish me luck. Okay, let's continuing frosting the cake hat now, and I'm doing the same border. I'm using a standard frosting tip for this one. I used a giant one for the big cake, and it took up a lot of frosting, and it took a long time because of that. But on this small one, it goes fast. And then I'm also adding some roses. I started by using the spackling to attach them, but hot glue honestly works better. I'm also frosting the shoes, and for me, the shoes are so fun to do. I don't know what it is. The scale is really fun. So I'm going to add some cake details on the heels, and for that I am mixing spackle in kind of like a beigey yellow cake color. I'm using a sponge brush to apply the cake, so it's kind of like a spattered texture, and it's really fun to put on, and I'm just doing like layers of cake, and this worked really nice. And then on the shoes, I'm adding a rose on top, and on the sides, I'm just using a star tip with white frosting, white spackle. You don't have to change the color on this at all. And I'm making little flowers and adding a pearl onto the cake shoes. So very fun. For the big cake, I am also adding the roses onto the cake. And for this part, I actually was smart, and I took the circumference and I was like, I want 9 roses. If I divide the circumference by 9, how many inches between each cake? And I like measured it out, and it was perfect. I am once again using more of the white spackle and doing more of a border. I'm hoping this will tone down the green, fingers crossed. And I'm doing, it's kind of like a shell border, but with just a circle tip. Then I have a special tip. It's called a leaf tip, and it's so fun because I just put in some green frosting in the piping bag, and you squirt it out and it comes out a leaf, and it's like magic, and it's very fun. So I'm putting that with all of the roses on the shoe, the cake hat, and the big cake. For the cake, I really wanted swags between the roses, but I'm not a very good piper. So I bought primary wire from just the hardware store. This is wire for like electrical stuff, and I will link it in the description. And I just cut little sections and made like a U shape and hot glued them onto the cake. It was so easy, and it looks amazing. And then I did that also on the cake hat, and then I used hot glue to attach the bride and groom on top and all of the roses on top. I used all my extra roses, and they're so cute on top of the cake hat.
Then I wanted to also have a ruffle swag. I just kind of felt like the more I could add to the cake, the more interesting it would be, the more it would take away from the pink and green Harry Potter cake look. So I am using a ruffle tip and just kind of wiggling my arm to do some swags. And where each ruffle swag is meeting up, I'm putting a little pearl in place, which is very cute. Then to wear the cake, I want some straps. So I bought some strapping material just from the fabric store and I'm hot gluing that on, and then I'm using more of that bookbinding tape to really reinforce it because I don't want this to break while I'm trick-or-treating. I'm also wanting some bows on the cake. So I have this bow mold and I'm putting clay inside of it. And all I had was this orange clay on hand. White clay would have been better because I ended up just painting the clay. That took a few coats. I really wish I had white clay. So I will link the right clay that I would have used if I wasn't doing this last minute. Then I'm gluing that onto the cake. So the styrofoam piece I used for my cake hat is kind of big and it's not sitting on my head in a way that I think I can walk around and enjoy myself. So I am carving out the inside of the cake to kind of have a hat shape, and this is a mess. Add some felt to the inside where you carve out so that you don't get little balls of styrofoam on your head. That's not fun. So because I want my son to match me, he's going to be a baker. And in my world, a baker wears a colorful costume and not just something white. So I'm dyeing it green. And honestly, I had a problem with my dye where I had like a little splotch of like a darker color. So I was like, great, I will just like add a pattern. So I took some watered down dye and just with a paintbrush, I added a pattern and it kind of looks like a watermelon, but it's also kind of a cool effect too.
All right, the cake dress is done. Are you ready to see it? My son and I had a lot of fun dressing up. The cake outfit with the hat and the shoes is honestly quite a bit to get dressed up into. I put gloves on, I held a bouquet, so I felt like a very wedding cake. I had my veil on, and it's so fun. I can't wait to wear it on Halloween. I'll be honest, on the shoes, when I walk around, a little bit of frosting falls off because I kind of put it probably too close to where my feet go. So like, because shoes move with your feet, some of the spackling, like little details fell off. But other than that, the cake costume is very fun to wear. My son was an amazing baker, and I think it is so fun. It's actually going to be my 40th birthday coming up next year, like in the spring. And I'm like, maybe I should repurpose this to be a birthday like hat cake situation and I can wear it for part of my party. I don't know if that's too much. You can let me know. If you have any questions on how I put this together or any of the details, please let me know. If you like it, please give this video a thumbs up. And if you're not already, I'd love if you subscribed.